Hello and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. Last week you may have seen me reviewing the Lumos, which you can see just there behind me. It's the brand new portable laser engraver and cutter from WeCreat. It's got a 10-watt diode laser and a 3-watt infrared laser, and I gave you a general overview of all its capabilities and its features. Well, today I wanted to hone in on one of the Lumos's most impressive features, which is metal engraving. Today you will see me use the 10-watt diode laser and the 3-watt infrared laser, which is a lot faster, to engrave on stainless steel and see what colours I can come up with. Now, I'm only a beginner when it comes to laser engraving on metal. And so as you watch, do bear in mind that the results that you see are only the beginning of what this machine is capable of. To understand the settings that you'll need to engrave metal, it will really help you a lot if you do some material test grids. So we're going to start with that. If you don't want to watch all of that, if you want to go straight to the projects that I'm doing today, please use the chapter markers in the timeline below. First of all, I'm making a test array for the infrared laser. So I go up to the top and click red light. Then I move over to the toolbox and select material test array. Here you can control your maximum and minimum power and speed settings, and you can also control the amount of rows and columns you have in your grid. When you do your very first test array, you will probably want to leave it just the way it is, with the figures that have already been preset into it. And then when you see the results, you can eliminate any settings that you're not happy with the results from and fine-tune your settings. I've already made a few arrays so far, so I kind of knew where to go with this. And so I decided on a maximum of 100% power and a minimum of 20%. And for the speed, I went for a maximum of 110 and a minimum of 10. Once you've clicked confirm, your test array will be ready and you can resize it and change anything that needs changing. Here I just changed it to fill engrave because that's what I'm going to be doing, and I changed the line density to 180. The line density is something else you can play around with until you find the perfect balance between speed and quality. If you want to make any further alterations, what you can do is ungroup it, as you just saw me do at the top there, and that way you can then select individual portions of the test array. Here I'm highlighting the title so that I can alter that. So for my future reference, I'm saying that it's the IR laser, even though that will be quite obvious from the results. But I'm also adding the line density as well, because I like to try out different line densities to compare the results. Then I can also take away those corner marks, which I really didn't want. If this was a test grid for the diode laser, I would highlight the yellow text down the side and down the bottom and change the settings, the power settings up to about 70, because I do find that if you don't change them, that yellow writing doesn't show up on the metal. And you really need to be able to see the numbers, don't you? But for the IR test grid, you don't need to do that. Now you can click refresh and you will get the camera view, and that's probably one of my favourite things about the Lumos. It's so handy because with the camera view then you can change your size of your test grid or whatever it is you're engraving and make sure it fits onto your material, which I already have in position there. And in case you're wondering why it's all looking a little bit pink and there's a pink mark there in the middle, I think the lens needs cleaning. I think I do need to clean the lens, but also there was a lot of bright sunlight which can make the view look a little bit pink, but it doesn't matter, I could still see it quite well. So here's how it looks after engraving, and look at that beautiful range of golds and bronzes and yellows. I just love those colours. So next I went through the same process. I won't show you it all again, but the only difference was that I changed it to the blue light laser, the diode laser, and here's the results. Lots of blues and pinks. If I had a bigger piece of steel, I would do a much larger array with more columns and rows, and you would get a much bigger range of colour. But still, you get a good idea from looking at that, don't you? Before we move on to my first project, there is one very important thing that I haven't said yet, but I do need to add. The results I got on these test grids are only applicable when engraving something of the same material and the same thickness. If you're engraving a different kind of metal or a thicker stainless steel, the results will be different. So when you're planning a laser engraving project on a particular item, it's usually a good idea to get a duplicate copy of that item so that you can perform a test grid onto that, and then you know your colours are going to be just right. So now I have my colour settings. I can use those to colour different parts of vector images. Let's have a go at that now. I had this SVG file which I imported, and I ungrouped it so that I could change the settings for each stripe individually, and I wanted to go for a dark colour at the bottom, moving to a lighter colour at the top. And if you pay attention to the settings which I'm changing on the right hand side, you will see that the only thing I'm changing for each stripe is the speed. The speed is going up for each one as I get lighter and lighter in colour. After inputting the settings for each stripe, I clicked refresh. Then I got the camera view of my working area and I was able to move my design so that it was just in the right place. Then I clicked start and it was ready to go. So this is filmed on time lapse. It took a lot longer than what you're seeing now, but with the 3-watt IR laser, it is much faster than other similar products on the market. I was really excited to see how this would turn out because I really love the bronzes and golds and browns that you get with the IR laser. They're such rich colours and it kind of has a texture to it that I just can't explain. Not a texture for touching it, just the way it looks. It looks so soft. And yeah, like I say, it's hard to explain. Have a look and see what I mean. Isn't that just stunning? I really do love it, and there's something about it that makes you want to stroke it, isn't there? So you might see some powder around the edges, and that's normal. It just dusts away. It's just the residue after the engraving. It looks like I was a little bit off with the positioning. The image seems a little bit low down, but never mind, I still love the finished results. So next up, I had a rectangular hip flask to engrave, and this time I was planning to use the diode laser to see if I could get some of those lovely blue shades and obviously other colours too. The only thing I was worried about here, as you can see, the face of the hip flask is curved, and I wasn't sure if the laser would, engrave all of it because of the curve. With hindsight, what I could have done was when I focused it, when I made the red and blue lights join together, and that's when you know it's focused, I should have focused on the halfway point between the highest and the lowest point, and I think my results would have been better. But as it was, I focused the laser on the highest point. With the last project, you saw me alter the settings for each part of the image separately, and that did take quite a long time. But with this one, you can see it's already coloured. I've got 3 different colours in that vector file. And so what I'm doing in the layers menu is I'm clicking on the colour that I want to change the setting for, and then I'm changing the setting. So everything in the image which is that particular colour will have the same settings. And that saves a lot of time, particularly if you look at everything that's orange, all those little splashes and whatnot. that would take ages if I had to do all of those separately. So using the layers menu helps a lot. Now I could tell you all the settings that I'm using for each different colour, but to be honest it's best if you just do your own material test grid, because no two pieces of metal are exactly the same anyway. Perhaps my settings will give you a starting point, but yeah, it's best if you experiment because you learn a lot in the process. So then I pressed go and waited patiently for it to engrave. Now this one did take a really long time. The diode laser takes a lot longer than the infrared laser, and I did have my line density set quite high. I could have made it quicker by changing that, but yeah, I was going by my test grid results, and that was the line density I used for the test grid. I've got a lot to learn still. Anyway, let's have a look, see how it turned out. So depending on the angle, you can kind of see some pinks in there. The blue's very obvious. You can definitely see the blue and kind of browny yellow colours, but there is definitely some pink in there. Here's a better view. I think you can see the colours much better now. So yeah, there's some definite pinks and purples in there, which are probably the hardest colours to get. So for my first attempt, it's not bad. I did have the issue that I predicted might happen, which was the edges where it's much lower and it went out of focus a little bit because the hip flask was curved. And so I'll get away with it. I think it just gives it a different effect, doesn't it? The engraving is still there, it's just a lot fainter at the edges. And now let's try something different. Let's see if I can get some colour when engraving bitmap images, which is a different process and something I'm even more of a beginner at. In fact, I've never done it. So let's see how my first attempt turns out. Okay then, let's start with what is probably the most common form of bitmap engraving, which is engraving photographs. Here I have a photograph of my granddaughter Millie, which I've just imported. And what I should have done really was measured the piece of metal that I'm going to be engraving it onto, but I didn't. And so what I've done here is I've pressed refresh so that I get the camera view of the metal, which is already in place, and I'm going to size the photograph to fit the metal on the camera view. Then I went to Edit Image, clicked Crop and took the part of the photograph which I wanted to engrave. Then I positioned it over the metal until it looked just right. When your bitmap file is selected, there is an option at the top where it says grayscale, and you can toggle along on the grayscale option and it will become grayscale, and you can alter it as much as you want until you think it looks just right. You need a good level of contrast, and so I just moved it a little bit. I didn't need to change it much. You can also alter the sharpness if you want to. At this point I was making it up as I went along, but it's the only way to learn sometimes, isn't it? And so I made sure the laser was set to blue light, so I want to use the diode laser for this. You can engrave with the infrared laser, but I just kind of prefer the engrave colour when you use the diode. So I've used the settings of 100% power, line density 200 and the dot duration 330. Once again, this is sped up, but it actually didn't really take too long at all. I really should have taken a note of the timings. It would have been very helpful to tell you exactly how long everything took. Sorry about that. So here you can kind of see how it turned out. It's really hard to capture it, when it's so reflective. But yeah, I was trying to get a good view for you to see how it turned out. It was okay. Not bad, it would pass, but I wanted to have another go and change the settings a little bit to see if I could get a darker image. This time I increased the line density to 230 and I also increased the dot duration to 350. The dot duration basically means how long it spends on each dot. So increasing the dot duration actually slows it down and it spends much longer in each place, making the image darker. This time I felt that the dark parts of the image were much darker and there was a much better contrast. There's the original one and there's the new one. So yeah, I'm not sure, maybe it's not better, but in my mind it looked better, much easier to see the details in the photograph. I decided it would be quite cute to put Millie's name on there, and so I typed it out and got it to the size that I wanted and the font that I wanted. This time I'm using the IR laser. It really is the quickest when you're engraving something like this. And of course, because I did my test grid earlier, I already knew the correct settings to get a nice dark engrave. The Lumos is a portable laser engraver and cutter, as you already know, and so it will be used quite a lot at craft fairs and events, and it will most likely mostly be used for personalisation like this. So it's really good that WeCreat have made the IR laser a 3 watt now instead of a 2 watt. It really is so much quicker. And I'm not sure if this only happens with the IR laser, but sometimes when you've finished your engraving, you can see kind of a brownish glow around it. That just wipes off. So there you see I gave it a rub with a piece of kitchen towel and that brownness went, and then it was nice and black and crisp. So there you see, for a complete beginner, it was quite simple, wasn't it? I didn't do a bad job at all with that one. Right, you've seen a grayscale laser engrave. Let's see if I can make a bitmap image. This is a PNG. Let's see if I can make it more colourful. This time I'm having a go at engraving a stainless steel shot glass. For that I'll be using the Rotary Attachment, which I will show you in just a moment. I did previously do some practicing and I came up with a dot duration of 700, line density of 300 and power of 61. I've used rotary attachments with different laser engravers in the past, but never have I had one with this function. This one has a tilting function and I think it's specifically designed for engraving the inside of rings, but you can use it for tapered objects such as this shot glass. Use the little spirit level that comes with it, get it level and then tighten up the knob again so that it stays still. Honestly, WeCreat really have thought of everything. I love that feature. And there it is, all hooked up to the Lumos and ready to go. There's not much for you to see with the engraving process this time because it's going in the direction that you can't see it. So there's no point me showing you all of the engraving. So we'll skip that and see how it turned out. So once again, it's quite hard to capture it on the camera, but hopefully you can see that I did get quite a few colours going on in there. And there's a closer look. Yeah, lots of blue and some pink and yellow. I love it. I think it's awesome. There's one last really cool thing that I wanted to show you before I leave you today, and that is the AI feature in the Make It software. It will come up with pretty much any bitmap image that you want it to, in any style that you want. There's so many different styles that you can choose from. But I wanted something simple. All I wanted was the letter B, which is my husband's initial, in like a monogram style with fancy, quite fancy detail. And so in the prompt box, I wrote B monogram with fancy detail and transparent background. So I'm not actually sure if it does do transparent backgrounds, even though that's what I asked it to do. But it gave me a white background and that was good enough because that wouldn't engrave. I just needed the black part. So if you're not liking what it comes up with, you can keep altering your description and choosing different styles. Here's all the different styles there are to choose from. And so I just kept trying out different styles and getting some really unusual and interesting effects. You do have a limit to how many you can do each day. At one point I did run out. I don't know what the limit is, but I'd tried loads and loads of different images before, the day before, doing a different thing. So yeah, there is a limit to how many searches or generations you can do. And yeah, anyway, eventually I got one that I liked and it was just what I was looking for, so I added it to my canvas. If you're interested in what settings I ended up using, please take note. The settings you can see me inputting there on the right. And let's see how this one turned out. And here it is. I think it might have been nice, a little bit darker, but still it's good and I like it. What do you think? Let's have a look at everything I've made today. I think my favourite out of all of them was the first one, the stripy hip flask. I love those colours. But everything I made looks really cool and I'm so happy with them all. If you're considering purchasing the Lumos, I highly recommend you get your order in quick before July 22nd, 2025. Because during this early bird period, you can make up to $2,000 in savings. Plus, the first 500 orders will receive a free magnetic cone. So overall, I'm very happy with how the Lumos handled the metal that I engraved today, with the beginner behind the wheel as well. I don't think I did too bad, and I'm looking forward to getting even better results in the future as I dial in my settings. So if you're interested in more details about the Lumos and its price and the offers that are on at the moment, please check my video description. Thank you for watching and bye for now.